In this video, we're going to be reacting to the strength and conditioning methods of Jaron Ennis. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Boxing Science React series, where we provide an analysis on the strength and conditioning methods of world champions, past, present and future. We have covered Gervonta Davis, Canelo Alvarez, Golovkin and many more. And in this episode, I'm really excited because we're going to be covering a very talented fighter that looks like he's going to be the future star of world boxing. And that is a current IBF World Welterweight Champion, Jaron Ennis. I'm really excited about looking at Ennis's S&C work because of his fantastic skills, his punch output, his hand speed, his rotational power. In this episode, we're going to be looking at what he does in his physical training to help support his fantastic boxing skills. Ennis has got skills to pay the bills with fantastic footwork, impressive head movement, a wide range of punch variations, blistering hand speed and combinations. But what's really impressive is that he's got a high knockout ratio, currently sitting at 90% of his wins coming by the way of knockout. It's not because he is a one-punch knockout artist, he's highly accurate with his power punches. He lands 46.2% of his power punches, which is currently one of the highest in world boxing today. He's in really good company, the likes of only Terence Crawford, Lomachenko and Bam Rodriguez just being higher than him, so really impressive. Now the reason why he's really accurate with these power punches is because even though he's got like really good footwork and is really good defensively, he fights in the pocket a lot, really close range punches and really relying on rotational power, really short, sharp rotational actions. This is the way that he generates his punching power. So I'm really interested to look at the rotational strength and rotational power work that Ennis does. So we're going to have a look at some of these exercises now. Okay, so first of all, he's working here on med ball rotational throws, looking like he's getting quite close to the wall here and really heavy. And he's splitting his stance here, which is going to be highly transferable to his boxing on the inside, switching his stances and looking to do some heavy kind of rotational work. And this is really good because what I find a lot of people end up doing with their rotational training is actually underloading it. You're not wanting to go too light with your rotational training because this is reducing the momentum that you're actually producing. So it looks like here he's working like 7 kilos, 10 kilo med ball. So it's actually overloading that rotational action, which will then transfer into gains in rotational power. At Boxing Science, we use a lot of med ball training to improve our rotational power. With standing variations, we like to go heavy, a little bit like what Jaron Ennis is doing here, 5, 7, and maybe even going up towards 10 kilo medicine balls. This is through different variations, such as like the split stance variations, the med ball hooks, standing variations as well, and also stuff where we're actually having to move our feet, whether that's a back step or a crossover step in our med ball rotational work. Doing these kinds of variations, all we're looking to do is maintain form, control that eccentric and reproduce that eccentric forces into a powerful rotational action, making sure that we're doing this anywhere between 5 and 10 kilo medicine balls to help optimize rotational momentum and rotational power. Okay, so this is an exercise that I see quite often done in boxing strength and conditioning, really beneficial for rotational power. I actually like it quite a lot, even though we haven't used it that much at Boxing Science. It'll just be to do with like kind of facilities. We haven't got a large wall to be able to do this kind of stuff. Getting a rope with a med ball at the end, taking the med ball away from the body is going to help generate torque and rotational power. And also it's rapidly working against the wall. You're having to accelerate all the way through, but then a stage of deceleration to be able to control the bouncing off the wall. And you're having to deal with that momentum going from side to side. And this is really important for combination punching. So it's great to see that Jaron Ennis is using something here that you can actually see transfer into his boxing performance as he rapidly rotates through his punches. If you're struggling to do this, a little bit like what we're like at Boxing Science, we haven't got the wall space to be able to do this exercise, you can do a few different variations. We like doing plate rotations. The benefit of this compared to the med ball work, able to do full hip rotations rather than keeping your hip fixed, which is optimizing the roll of the obliques. Having the hips working is getting all your body working together. And it's got similar benefits to this exercise that Jaron Ennis is doing here. So plate rotations, challenging that momentum, going from left to right, and this will transfer into better rotational function and transfer towards your boxing performance. So it's got a lot of new school methods here, a lot of strength conditioning work, but it's also got a few old school ones as well. It's got the baseball bat against the bag, which I actually quite like because it's generating that rotational power. But the difference is here is that it's having to create some sort of snap at the end. So this is really transferable towards a punching action, because like most rotational work that we do, either like heavy based strength work, such as like cable rotations, but it's kind of just one activation pattern. Rotational power work, the medicine ball throws, have the acceleration, but we're actually releasing the ball at the end. What we're needing is that snap to be able to transfer towards a punch. What Jaron Ennis is doing here is optimizing that rotational power, but it's needing that effective mass at the end. If he hasn't got that effective mass and that snap and basically tension through his arms and through his core, through his lower body, it's going to lose control of that baseball bat. This is really beneficial, especially for Jaron Ennis, who relies on that trunk rotation and that snap during the punching action. And he also does the same with wood chops. Wood chops is, again, a little bit labored. Like, I prefer the baseball bat work compared to the wood chops, but wood chops have been really popular, especially with American fighters. A lot of rotational action. Again, you're getting that snap at the end range. If you're wanting to do this in maybe in a safer way and more dynamic way, I'd be looking to do some more med ball work, whether that's med ball slams or med ball rotational slams. You're going to be able to generate more force, more speed, and you're doing it in a safer action as well. Sticking with the rotational theme, he's doing something here with a banded pull-off press, being quite crunch and taking like a body shot at the same time. Like, I think like this is just get cueing that activation, which I think is quite good, rather than it being like, right, is trying to work on body shots. But there's often where we'll do like some pull-off press and I'll go around and feel the core, making sure that they're activating and bracing. But the pull-off press is a fantastic exercise because it's overloading the obliques and also working that posterior shoulder muscle as well. This is working anti-rotation, so resisting rotation of the lumbar spine. And even though that Boots Ennis is wanting to work that rotational power and being able to rotate fast, he needs to be able to control it. So when he comes over from a right hand to left hook, if he doesn't have that control in his rotation, he won't be able to, one, be in an advantageous position to be able to land that left hook, but also is going to not be able to produce as much power. Working on anti-rotation exercises are really beneficial. So he's doing this here with a pull-off press, but he's also doing a rotational strength exercise called halos, which is working a kettlebell over your head and then coming back round the other side. And this is working the obliques here, because basically once you go to one side, your spine is wanting to either rotate or laterally flex. So your obliques are working here. Actually ticks a few boxes for us because it's actually working that shoulder mobility. It's working serratus anterior, often called the boxer's muscle, because it's really important to be able to control the scapula during a pressing action. And we're actually getting a lot of activation through that halo action there. It's also great for thoracic extension because we're in a sport where we're very anterior dominant. I actually see Jaron Ennis has got really, really good posture. And this is what's probably helping him being able to rotate better into his punches. So these kettlebell halos, see him doing them quite a lot. Something that's going to be a small exercise, but you can see it being really important for Boots Ennis's development. So another interesting fact about Boots Ennis is that he's got one of the best defenses in boxing today, with his opponents only landing on average 7.2 punches per round. So this is in the top 10 and he's in great company with the best defense in world boxing at the minute, Shakur Stevenson with 5.3. So he's not too far off. So how does he train this? Obviously, it's a lot more than strength and conditioning. He does a lot of head movement drills in the gym, does a lot of light sparring where he's actually working on things rather than heavy sparring. And obviously this is skills that are built in the boxing gym, but something that he actually does that is transferable with boxing science is that it does a shoulder tag. This is what we do based off like being involved with Sheffield City Boxing Club, and we do it with amateur boxers, but also do it with our Ultimate Coaching for Combat Sports workshop attendees. And the reason why we do it with these guys is to demonstrate the importance of being light on the feet, being reactive through the foot and calf complex in order to get in and out of range, to be able to land your shots and obviously defense shots. And the shoulder tag game is not only great to demonstrate that, but it's a fantastic warm-up tool as well, to be working light on your feet, getting the brain going, getting interactive between people in your class. So it's fantastic to see Boots Ennis using this. You know, one of the best defenses in world boxing is using the shoulder tag game as something that we've been using for years at Boxing Science and in Sheffield City ABC. You can just grab a partner, use lead hand to lead shoulder. And the main thing here is to be using foot defense instead of like cheating with like kind of head defenses and everything. This is basically looking to try and get the lower body moving, the feet nice and light, and improving your foot defenses rather than just working on head defenses. So fantastic to see Boots Ennis using this. So looking at some of his upper body work, he used landmine presses, a really beneficial tool that we use at Boxing Science. And the reason why is because boxers are quite tight in the overhead range. So we use a range of different landmine presses, half kneeling, standing, doing a split stance, and even going towards our more powerful exercises such as the landmine punch and the landmine split jerk. So the landmine is really beneficial is because we're loading the anterior and posterior shoulder, but without going into that overhead range. This means that we're able to load up the action more without compromising the boxer's shoulder or their lower back. So if they're pressing overhead and they're limited in that overhead range, what they'll look to do is compensate by flaring the back, and that's where you end up getting like back injuries from lifting. So it's great to see Jaron Ennis using the landmine press here. Also for his upper body, he does a single arm dumbbell chest press. And this is really good to see that it's using single arm exercises to improve strength of his upper body. And the reason why it's important is because there's a big imbalance between lead shoulder and the rear shoulder. And the reason why is because there's a large proportion in terms of how many times you throw your lead hand compared to your backhand, and also you throw it in a different way. Think about how you throw a jab, you're not going to rotate that much compared to how you throw a backhand. This lead shoulder here ends up being quite tight, underactive through the posterior shoulder here. It becomes a more problematic area for boxers, especially professional boxers. So single arm exercises are important because one, we need to get this lead arm stronger, and also in like barbell work, so bilateral pressing actions, you'll often get like some sort of compensation or limitation in terms of how much you're going to learn. So we do a lot of dumbbell work. So we'll do dumbbell chest press, dumbbell floor press. We'll also do some single arm work, whether that's in a bridge position, on the bench, or in our landmine variations as well. Let's take a look at some of Jaron Ennis's core training work now. Love looking at these boxers' core training because it gets some fantastic ideas, and also it's the most important contributor towards a punch. In our research at Boxing Science, we found that core lean muscle mass and also rotational forces are the biggest contributors towards a punching action. In these Boxing Science React series, the one common thing that all these boxers do is work their core. So let's take a look at Boots Ennis's core training work. This first exercise is like a bear crawl variation with a plate press. Now this is a really impressive and difficult exercise to do. Stuff like bear crawls, Spider-Man twists, everything like that. Fantastic exercises, not only for mobility and movement, but also for core strength as well. Doing the bear crawl with a plate press, this is working not only your core, but also working that shoulder stability at the same time. And working these in conjunction with each other is really beneficial in terms of postural stability and shoulder health at the same time. So really good exercise here is pushing up, it's getting that lengthening of the core, it's pushing up again, working that serratus anterior, working the posterior shoulder muscles. And then as he's coming up, is squeezing down one side by tucking up his leg and externally rotating his leg. And this is getting the obliques working at the same time. So not only is he working his abdominal muscles, his posterior shoulder muscles, he's also working the obliques as well. Ticking a lot of boxes here that will help him be able to punch harder, but also going to keep him injury free. Okay, so this exercise might be quite difficult for people to do. Jaron Ennis is doing this quite well here. He's maintaining good posture, is getting good range, but this might be quite difficult to do. Let's start off by doing stuff like our mobility warm-up, yoga press-ups and Spider-Man twists. And then you can start doing like some stuff like this in your core training. Very basic exercise to do is a plank shoulder tap, but you can also increase this kind of demand here. Elevated plank to shoulder touch. You can do a lateral plank walk. Adding bands to this is really beneficial as well. And then also doing kettlebell drags. So if you haven't got a large amount of space to be able to do these bear crawls and presses, doing the kettlebell drags is a fantastic variation where you're just going to be on the spot, working the kettlebell, dragging that across, and it's going to have similar benefits as it's working the abdominals, obliques, and also working shoulder stability at the same time. What's really impressive about these bear crawls as well is that it's actually doing this as part of a circuit. Now, core circuits are really important to put into your strength and conditioning workouts. And the reason why is because we're wanting to retain or increase lean muscle mass of the core. So we need to do this through metabolic stress and time under tension. And also how much volume that we're putting in, because we've got all these things to think about in terms of our strength and conditioning workouts. It's hard to fit everything in. So if you can do a circuit at the end, you're getting more exercises, you're getting more volume in. Putting them together, you're increasing metabolic stress and also time under tension, which will help stimulate muscular hypertrophy of the core. So it's great to see Ennis here doing a core circuit, is putting a bear crawl in with the plank hold into another anti-extension exercise. This plank hold is really impressive as well. The flexion of the arms is just going to be increasing that tension through the abdominal muscles. Wanting to replicate something like this, but you haven't got this piece of kit, doing a long levered plank hold to be quite good to start off with. And then also doing Swiss ball variations. So you can do a Swiss ball plank, Swiss ball stir the pots, figure of eights, anything like that to just increase variability during a plank action, which will help increase core activation whilst you're doing a plank. Boots Ennis really works on his upper body endurance. He's doing this like uppercuts with an action here. This is really going to be working the forearms and the shoulder muscles under increased amount of time. And it's really important to do upper body conditioning, obviously because your upper body can end up being quite fatigued. At Boxing Science, we look to try and improve upper body strength, which can then transfer to strength endurance. But there's different things that we'd look to do to try and improve upper body conditioning. If an athlete feels like they fatigue through their shoulders or through their posture during boxing, it's somewhere that we'd actually look to try and improve on. So we can do this through blood flow restriction training, which is going to help improve strength endurance, but not putting on unnecessary slow twitch muscle. And also in a conditioning element, we'll do stuff like med ball slams and do battle ropes. Jaron Ennis here, he's doing battle rope training, very arm dominant, working that upper body endurance, which is going to be beneficial for him with the amount of punches he throws and punches that he throws on the inside is going to need that upper body endurance. So battle ropes is something that we do at Boxing Science in terms of our circuits, work power endurance and help improve our high intensity conditioning. So Boots Ennis here, really great to see that he is using a heart rate monitor during boxing training. And this is something that I don't see that often. And the reason why is because if you use a heart rate monitor during conditioning sessions, but during boxing, obviously you don't want to be punched on the heart rate monitor, even though like the amount of times that boxers have actually had this done is very minimal in my experience. It's often neglected in wearing a heart rate monitor during boxing, but it's really important information for yourself and the sports scientists to know. The reason why is because we need to quantify load. And this is difficult to do in boxing. You can't really count amount of punches that you can do. Punch trackers, a bit variable in terms of like their accuracy and their use in boxing. So that how much load are you going through during a boxing session is something that isn't tracked that well. So using a heart rate monitor during boxing, we can see how many calories you burn, which is really important for your nutritional interventions. How much time do you spend in certain heart rate zones? So if you spend a certain time over 90% maximum heart rate, we know as a strength and conditioning coach, we need to know that if you spend too much time in the red zone during your boxing and during 1 week, we may need to deload your conditioning. And this is really important in terms of optimizing performance, but also reducing the likelihood of overreaching, which can lead to illness, fatigue, potentially injury as well. So using a heart rate monitor during training is really beneficial for you to help optimize your performance, make weight safely, and also avoid overtraining. So Boots Ennis is a big puncher with most of his wins coming via way of knockout. but it's also shown that he's got the fitness. In his last couple of fights, he's gone 10 and 12 rounds. It shows that he's got the fitness for the distance. So what does he do in terms of improving his cardiovascular performance? From the clips that I can see across YouTube, I can't really see that much in terms of like what he does in terms of volumes and intensities. He does a lot of road work, he does some hill running, and also does some track work as well. So a large variation in terms of like kind of volume-based aerobic work, and also he does some sprint interval and high intensity training on the track. Something that is quite interesting that Boots Ennis uses is the underwater treadmill. Now the underwater treadmill is becoming more popular, those at the top level that have access to this kind of equipment. It's actually used in the UFC Performance Institute. So people like Conor McGregor has used it in the past. A lot of boxers are now using the UFC Performance Institute as well. And the underwater treadmill is basically there to reduce them lower body impact forces during running. And this is really beneficial for athletes that might be going through active recovery, like wanting to do a run, whether that's like in some sort of heart rate zone, but not wanting to accumulate any fatigue through the lower body. So it's really good to mix in terms of your conditioning training. It's also really beneficial for those that might be struggling to reach the running speeds that are required to be able to stimulate adaptation. And also it's really important for those that are like coming back from any sort of lower limb injury and you're wanting to try and gradually increase that load. Now underwater treadmills aren't that accessible, especially in the UK. Something that is more accessible is an anti-gravity treadmill. It's not in every facility, but you can locate this through Google. They've got a map where they can get the nearest anti-gravity treadmill. This is something that we've used when rehabbing our athletes, getting back into running when they've gone under a lower limb injury. Also reducing lower body impact forces are really beneficial in boxing training is because boxers are going through high training loads, especially towards the back end of training camp. Now we don't have access to an underwater treadmill, but what we do have is a Power Breathe altitude system stent. This is simulating high altitude conditions that creates a hypoxic environment for an athlete that's basically going to increase the cardiovascular demands, reducing the running speed, and then in turn reducing them lower body impact forces. So we're able to improve an athlete's fitness without taking too much from the lower body. Obviously this is another specialist piece of kit, but if you're looking to just try and reduce like lower body impact forces, you can look to vary your volumes and intensities in terms of your running load, but also conditioning types. So instead of just doing purely road running and treadmill work, you can mix it up by using some sort of air bike exercises and also using circuits as well. And having this variation will help get you fitter without taking too much out of your lower body. Okay guys, so that's the end of this episode of the Boxing Science React series. Jaron Boots Ennis, fantastic to see his training. I'm really excited to see how he progresses in his boxing career. If you enjoyed this episode, go and check out our other Boxing Science Reacts episodes. We've got the likes of Canelo, Gervonta Davis, Bivol, and many more. And if you're not a subscriber yet, please hit that subscribe button so don't miss out on any future content. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully see you on the next episode of the Boxing Science Reacts.